Hi, and welcome to the Jewellers Academy podcast. My name is Kim Thomson, a full time jewellery tutor based in Bristol. I'm passionate jewellery making should be accessible for all and have spent the last 2 decades striving to help people achieve and create jewellery they're proud of, no matter their age, experience, learning style, or physical ability. This week on the podcast, I'm talking to Amie Cox from Studio Cotton. Studio Cotton is a website design company for independent businesses and podcasts. They're based in Bristol near me and champion not only the online community through loads of free, bite-sized tidbits and advice, but also their local community through networking and support events, which is how I know Amy.
Yeah.
Um, you're one of the most passionate people that I know, and I'm sure that our listeners are going to love this episode. But welcome, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Kim. And it's so nice to see you again. It's been a couple of years since we've seen each other in real life.
To kick us off, could you introduce yourself? Because obviously everyone else doesn't necessarily know who you are, and share the
Yeah.
story behind your founding of Studio Cotton, what inspired you to take that particular path, those sort of things.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of business owners, I'm like an accidental, I'll say entrepreneur, an accidental business owner. I founded Studio Cotton in 2016, so nearly nine years ago, dead on at the moment. And basically, I'd worked in marketing agencies and marketing roles almost since I left uni, all the way back in 2008. And I'd never had a good career. So I worked with various size agencies, always pretty much always in the digital side, and a lot of email marketing and a lot of websites and user experience. But like the work hard, play hard culture is not something that I was ever good at. I'm also not very I was gonna say like tactical. I'm not like good at office politics. So I didn't exactly thrive in that environment, but I always loved the work. And I find the communication side of marketing like fascinating. So one of my last agency jobs before I started Studio Cotton worked with small businesses, and one thing that I found that I loved is just the fact that for one you could like got to see the results of the work. Like I would say like, hey, let's try adding this page to your website or try sending out this as a series of emails, and then I could just log in and see the results and be like, oh look, I got enough money for this business owner to go on holiday this year, and it's just really satisfying. And so I kind of started Studio Cotton because I left my last job and I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I want to leave marketing forever. Then I started freelancing. Funnily enough, one of my very first clients was a jewelry brand. And then I thought, oh, this is actually like really satisfying. And the other thing is that I love attention and I love praise. So I started doing in person events really early on in Studio Cotton for attention and for praise, and also, to help the community and to share my expertise. But I think that kind of really solidified kind of what we do, and how, like, one thing that I'm really proud of is how much content we produce and how much like advice we share on our blog, how much advice we put into social media, how much I'm now putting back into our email campaigns that I was terrible at sending. But yeah, it's all about creating excellent websites that we work really hard on, but also allowing that to kind of help us help the greater small business and podcasting community to make their own websites better themselves too.
You've what's the word? Not transition, but things have changed a little bit from when you
Mm.
first started Studio Cotton and your focus. But I suppose the really interesting thing is you've taken your core skills and you've realized that the thing you hated wasn't really the skills, it was the particular atmosphere and the
Yeah.
way things are normally done. And you figured out a way to just pivot and make it work for you in your way.
Yeah, I think I've done really well at just almost like latching on to the stuff that goes well and the stuff that I enjoy. I think one thing is like you mentioned, we used to also offer branding and marketing as well as websites. So that was a big change during the pandemic because all of a sudden a ton of small businesses wanted websites. So we just basically expanded that side of the business. And then the reason we dropped the others was because I don't want to spend any more time on social media than I already need to spend for myself. And the branding just didn't like do it for me like a website did. So yeah, I've always kind of thought like what brings me the most fulfillment, because if I'm not fulfilled through the business that I've created, what was the point in creating it?
Yeah. Well, exactly. I think it's so important. But one of the things we hear all the time in the jewelry community is people are often making things that sell well,
Hmm.
but they've lost all joy for it. And it's very brave and scary to say, I know this thing is doing well for me. I know this thing is bringing in money, but it's not bringing me joy. So therefore, I'm going to shift my focus.
Mm. Yes. Yeah, I feel like as well for for jewelry brands, if you've got a product that is selling, you're like it's the easy win. I think for me, maybe it felt a little bit easier to drop a service that I didn't love producing, but yeah, it, it hurt. Like it's a big pulling on your heartstrings to make those kind of changes.
Yeah. So talking about pulling on heartstrings, so
Hmm.
SEO, right? To
Yeah.
me, before I met you, my gut reaction would be SEO is a very dry subject.
Yep.
And but like I said, whenever I see you talking, your face just lights up and you make it accessible and you're very passionate about SEO.
There's so many benefits to it. It's something that I spend a lot of my time convincing other business owners to share their expertise, because a lot of people are like, I think it's that thing of like people are trying to put in boundaries. It's like almost like that, like I say, like tug of war between boundaries and gatekeeping when it comes to a lot of expertise. From my point of view, there's like loads of reasons why being generous with advice has always been part of the strategy. Part of it is because a lot of people talk about community when you're talking about marketing. And the way I've seen it is that I intend to take out the small business community. Like I want to take out leads, I want to take out projects, I want to take out event tickets, I want to take money from the small business community. And so I have to put something in, just like an actual community, like a geographic community. If you've got a village and you want to take something out of that village, if you want the villagers to come to your pub, you do stuff with villagers, you put on events, you donate to the food bank when you need someone to know that you're a good member of your community. So I always saw it as like, okay, I intend to take something out of the community. So this is me kind of paying my dues and putting something in. The other thing is like, as someone who sells their expertise, I need to demonstrate that I have those expertise. And the best way to demonstrate that I have those expertise, instead of just saying, hey, I'm an expert, is to just write it on our website. And then there's the fact that it also increases my reach. So everybody who reads my blog post, who spends 3 minutes reading that 3,000 word article or skimming that 3,000 word article, that's just my brand kind of seeping into their brains and becoming part of their psyche. And also like there's so many opportunities that we have reaped from blogging, like magazines that I've been featured in, magazines that our office has been featured in just for looking pretty because I wrote about it on the blog. So there's almost, as I say, like almost no downside to blogging. Particularly when we're talking about SEO, except that it takes ages. There's that one as well. But it works out well for me, and I think it's an odd one that I see a lot of people are like, don't share your expertise. I'm like, no, it's relatively easy thing to do to get a lot of also praise and attention. Yeah, I never felt it was a chore. It's just something that I always thought was strategic and only helps people.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I got a lot of backlash when I did a year's worth of free tutorials, and so many people were like, "What are you thinking? No one's going to come and pay for
Mhm.
workshops and all this sort of stuff when you're giving stuff away for free." And it was the complete opposite because it, like I say, it just
Mhm.
builds trust and people feel that they know you before they maybe turn up in person or have to exchange those emails or whatever the case may be in terms of more paid services. And I always think about it a bit like I could spend my money on a marketing budget and I could aggressively go and advertise and promote
Mhm.
places, or I could just share my expertise and so that people feel confident and then they're more likely to want to engage anyway.
Yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of people that would like book us to do some SEO work or to book the whole website, it doesn't hurt that some of my posts do explain the things that are difficult. And some people will read an article and be like, oh, do you know what? I actually can't be asked to do that. So I will save up and I will pay Studio Cotton. I'm sure it's the same for jewelry workshops as well. That they will read a tutorial and they'll be like, this is just isn't going in. I need to go and sit in a room with this person. Or I will just send them my jewelry to be remodeled and not worry about it myself.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Because again, I know for a fact this is the same with websites, obviously from first-hand experience, but with jewelry, it's so common where people presume. So, especially with all the technology now, or if you think about, marketing, we've got Canva and all this sort of stuff, people presume that it's just quick and easy these days. But we all know it's not. The reality behind making something and building something from scratch is never quick and easy. There's
Mhm.
always so many variables and things that need doing. So, unless you really sort of communicate that with your clients, they're not going to know. And you can't just go around telling people, oh, it's difficult. It's almost like
Yeah.
saying, show that these are all the things we have to think about. These are all the things that we have
Yeah.
to do with. And then they can make their own decisions that actually sometimes it's better to outsource certain
Mm.
things, you know,
Yeah, and
make,
then also hopefully my content helps the businesses grow to the stage where they have the budget to be able to outsource as well.
yeah, yeah, that definitely makes a big difference. Well, actually, one of the things I was going to ask you about.
Mhm.
So I'm a great believer that so many small businesses, and 100% myself included, get distracted by things and we end up focusing on not necessarily the completely wrong thing, but certainly not the thing that's going to give us the most bang for our buck and make the biggest difference to our businesses. And the quote that you shared today, or your own quote, but the thing you wrote today on your social media, you wrote that the customers most ready to buy are the ones searching for what you do. Um, and I just thought that says it all. So we all focus on, oh, we have to put all the swanky stuff on social media, we've got to build our audience, we've got to do this,
Yeah.
to do the other. Whereas actually, if we just got our CEO under control, or really, really focused on what we do want to get out there, people are already looking. And if we get that bit right, they'll be able to find us.
Yeah. I think a lot of it as well is that it's so easy to get sucked into social media in particular, because social media is built to engage users. It's built to get us addicted to our phones. And I think a lot of the time when small business owners talk about social media, we talk about it as if we aren't the same users that are addicted to our phones, that aren't addicted to the likes and the comments and the saves if we're done a particularly good post. And we get that same dopamine high. And it's so much easier to get kind of stuck in that circle of chasing social media approval and not really think about the fact that whilst it's totally possible that the odd business goes viral and sells out because of one Instagram reel that was the perfect reel at the perfect time, but for the most part, social media actually has a pretty dire conversion rate. Like, actual traffic from social media is quite hard to turn into website traffic, because, like, why would Instagram want its users to leave Instagram? It can't sell ads if their users leave Instagram. So it doesn't tend to prefer posts that get people to leave the platform, and also traffic on your website. So I can see a ton of website stats because I have access to a lot of brands, so Google Analytics, and I can see that traffic from social media converts at a much lower rate than traffic from other sources. So I talk a lot about website conversion rates. In the UK, I want like a website to have a like 2.5% conversion rate. It's generally a little bit lower in fashion, but 2.5 is like a solid conversion rate. For small businesses, a really healthy small business might be around 3.5%. In my experience, social media is about 1% lower than that. So if your website conversion rate is 2.5%, social media tends to be 1.5%. And another way to put that is that you almost have to work twice as hard to get the same money from those people, even after you've gotten them on your website. So it's just a lot of work to feed the social media beast and to push those people through to your website. Whereas, like, one of my areas of speciality in SEO tends to convert 1% higher. It tends to be easier, but there is no high. There are no likes. There are no comments. You don't even get to see your stats unless you set up different platforms and log in and check those platforms and make those tweaks. So I can totally see why, like me, like, I spend way more time on social media than probably it is worth for the business, but I also want the likes, and I have to kind of constantly remind myself that, like, hey, I need to readjust my time. And a lot of jewelry business, because there is so much content out there and so many jewelers that you can see on social media and you can see their stats, it's a lot easier to kind of follow their path because you can't see their Google Analytics. You can't see the orders coming through the back of their Shopify website. So it's a lot harder to kind of get jealous of their boring marketing channels.
Yeah. And also because of the algorithm. I don't know how you find it, because presumably for you, you're not following loads of people doing similar to you, but
Mhm.
jewelers, myself included, are renowned for it. And then it's really common where people presume there's a gazillion jewelers in their local area, and therefore they're never
Yeah.
going to be able to do anything ever because there's just too much competition. But when you speak to the general public, they're completely unaware more
Mhm.
often than not, because they're not seeing the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
thing. But what they will be doing, like you say, they'll be going on Google and then putting in a search term for
Mhm.
what it is they want. And if you aren't popping up in that area, then you're not getting
Yeah. This is one area that I think, like, if I could tell jewelers off for something on their websites, jewelers just, why won't you guys write thorough product descriptions? It's so hard, like, SEO wise. So if I take SEO back a step, so I talk a lot about search engine optimization, or SEO, and there's two main things that we want to achieve in SEO. The first is to rank as high as we can in Google searches, but the other thing is to rank for as many terms as possible in Google searches, so that as many people as possible are typing things in that you sell, that you can help with, and that they can land on your website. Every single product description on your website is a product page, and every page is something that can appear in Google search results. But if you don't write that description, if someone is typing something into Google and it's not written in your description, why would Google show it to them? Like, if somebody is Googling a festival headband and you sell festival headbands, but you've only called it a tiara on your website and you've written one line and said, this is a beautiful tiara for nights out. If the person Googling festival headband, even though you have the perfect product for it, will never find it because you just didn't write those two words. So that's something that writing thorough product descriptions is very boring. I will say it is like a really boring job, but that is one of the easiest, best ways that you can impact your SEO and help people who are looking for your product to find your products.
Could you just, I've just suddenly thought, just in case people don't know what
Mhm.
SEO is, can you let them know?
Yeah, so yeah, search engine optimization or SEO is all about optimizing a website to basically appear higher or more often or both in search engines. And when we talk about search engines, we talk about Google. So it's just about making sure that we are appearing in search results for as many people as possible, relevant people as possible when they type something into Google. A lot of this involves tweaks to our website. So continually reviewing your website, adding content, removing content, formatting content. But there's also other sides of SEO like technical SEO, which I think a lot of people, when they think about SEO, do tend to focus on the technical side of it, which I will say for the most part, like a lot of small brands don't have to worry about so much. If you run Shopify, if you run Squarespace, a lot of the technical side of things, the website performance, are being taken care of by Squarespace and Shopify. So there's a couple of odd things that you can do there, like manage your images. Don't upload a high res photo to your website because it'll make it slow, and Google doesn't like slow websites. But for the most part, the best way that we can impact how we rank, how powerful our website is by the words that we write on it. So a lot of the time when I talk about SEO, I'm really focused on making sure that we are doing things like writing thorough product descriptions, because again, everything written in a product description has the potential to be the reason you show up in a Google search result. But also things like creating product collections, which is something that all e-commerce businesses could really benefit from actually looking at things like Pinterest trends or looking at what's trending on social media when you are addicted to your reels. And if you hear something like, the example I keep giving is coquette, which I think was a trend last year. And if you hear the word coquette come up a lot and you know what it means, or you have to Google what it means because you're a millennial like I am, and actually looking through your collection, be like, oh, all of these products. If you have 50 items of jewelry, like, I think these 15 would meet that. So you go into Shopify, you go into WooCommerce or Squarespace, and you create a tag or collection and call it your coquette jewelry collection. Or if you have a selection of jewelry that you thought would be perfect for the Eras tour, create your own Eras tour collection and just group all of those products together. And the worst thing that could happen is that you spent 10 minutes ticking boxes and clicking add to collection and nothing happens. Or the best thing that could happen is that that collection could rank really well, win you traffic, win you sales. So product collections and the trendy ones in particular are a really easy win and a good way to almost link up social media to your website as well.
Last time I saw you, you were talking about just that. I can't remember exactly what it was because it was something that had come from TikTok. There was a trend at the moment, and
Mhm.
I am an ostrich when it comes to TikTok. I used to engage with it. Um, but there'd been a trend. I want to say something to do with yellow, but it was something like really, I don't
Mm.
know, really easy. And all this person had done is gone in and changed a couple. They made a collection
Yeah.
based on or something like it was things that were red, and
Yeah.
all they
Unexpected red. Yeah.
there you go. Can you tell people about that? Because it's really interesting.
Yeah, so this is actually, I want to give a shout out to a lady called Katie from Scootaboo who sells art prints. And this was literally, she asked me the question in my website clinic, which is a monthly like roundtable event we have here in Bristol, where people come to this very lovely pink studio and just ask questions about their website, and I answer them. And so Katie asked, if I hear this trend about unexpected red, do you think I should add a collection? I'm like, hell's yeah, you should add a collection. You can use things like, oh, one thing I would say as well is like, if anybody's looking for something on social media, someone else is Googling it, not as many people, but if someone is looking for unexpected red, or someone's constantly being fed unexpected red, or they're being fed coquettish, or they're being fed clean girl aesthetic, they're probably going to be Googling it as well. And this is something that we can view. There's a free tool called Google Trends, which you can find at trends.google.com. And you can type in something that you think is maybe trending on social media, and there'll be a big old bar if there is, and a little old bar if there isn't. There's also trends.pinterest.com, which will tell you what is trending on Pinterest. And again, you can go through it. That one, you can also filter by men's fashion and women's fashion. So you can actually get things that people want to wear right now. And that'll give you some really good ideas for collections that you can create. There's also TikTok trends. So TikTok has a trend report as well. That's not one I've subscribed to because I only found out about it like 3 days ago. So that's another one that I'll be subscribing to. I'll be getting my team to subscribe to because I have too many emails already. But you can look at that and be like, well, if it's trending on TikTok and it takes you 10 minutes to create that collection and write 2 sentences of waffle about, I don't know, something that sounds the same as what you're hearing on social media. Best case scenario, again, you get more website traffic and sales. Worst case, 10 minutes of your life is gone and it's fine.
This is what I'm talking about, but bite-sized, actionable.
Hmm.
It's You make it sound so easy, and when you break it down like that, it is easy. But just when so many of us get completely overwhelmed by how many things we're normally being shouted at,
Yeah.
it can be too much. But again, that's why I love the way you do your social media, and then normally being able to also go through to the longer form blog
Mm.
posts, because they always seem to be just little things that are quick and actionable, the vast majority of them. And if you can
Yeah.
chip away at stuff like that, it makes such a difference.
I'll also say, like, it is strategic. Like, there are definitely longer, bigger things that people can do, but I'm also trying to help my audience with the things that are going to make the biggest difference the most, like, urgently. And so I could tell someone how to, I don't know, like, niggle the last 10% of their site speed faster, but that wouldn't be a very useful blog post. And it's not what most people should be focusing on. So I do try to pick the most bite-sized things and find ways to make it whimsical enough that it that it sticks in people's minds.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, coming back to what you were talking about before, and making sure that you're using the terms and you're writing your product descriptions really thoroughly and hitting as many keywords as you can think of. But also, a few days ago, you posted about don't duplicate your SEO.
Hmm.
But then you also posted yesterday, I think, or the day before, about how you were ranking really high for candle photography, even though that's not really anything to do with what you offer. But it was more because people who do things like that weren't quite hitting the
Yeah.
right things. So could you explain that to people about the how to use those words and the things that can really benefit them and the things that can backfire and cause issues with Google?
So the first thing to look at is repetition versus duplication. So duplication would be if you've got, I don't know, like 10 products, and to create them, you went into your website and hit duplicate, 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 and then just change the pictures and change like one line of text. The reason why that is bad for SEO is because Google, again, is not smart as such, smart as Google says it is. It's not. And if you give it two products that have 700 words on the page and 650 of those words are the same words, then you've told Google that that is two of the same thing. And from Google's perspective, if someone is typing something into Google because they want to find a necklace, for example, Google has no reason to show them two of your pages because they're the same page. So it basically means that it's most likely that one will rank and the rest won't. So it's almost like you're, by duplicating those 20 products, you're putting 19 of them in the bin because you have told Google that they're the same. So that's just SEO wise. There's other factors, like if you are, running ads, for example, having the same product description on all of your products probably won't make a big difference. So that's why duplication is generally bad. If you are writing product descriptions, I try to say, because it is really tough to not do any duplication, is to maybe aim for at least 50% of the words on that page to be unique to that product. That means writing some marketing waffles, some different gift ideas, just going to town really describing the physical features of a product, which is also something that a lot of people miss out on. Finding like 8 different ways to write your small business bio and including a slightly different one each time. So it seems like a much bigger mountain than it has to be, but that's still like quite a slog, especially if you have like 200 pieces, because that is just a lot of words to write. Whereas repetition is basically about making sure that you have got the things that you want to appear in Google for on your website. So duplication would be like paragraphs of content or pages of content being copied and pasted. Repetition is 3-word phrases, 2-word phrases being found throughout your content. So the example I gave on our website is that Studio Cotton, my website design company, ranks really well for a lot of terms related to candle photography and scented candles, because we literally have one blog post on our website that's not even about candle photography. It just mentions it in there twice, and another blog that links to it that also says candle photography on it. And I said the reason we rank for it is because we've got those articles, but the why is because photographers haven't written those. And I kind of try to say, like, that's not my traffic. Someone Googling candle lifestyle photography, they're not looking for me. They're looking for a candle lifestyle photographer. But one issue that a lot of people have is that they don't have specificity on their website. I like to think of like another idea being like a social media manager and having a whole website saying you're a social media manager, but not writing Instagram and not writing TikTok. I see it with a lot of jewelry brands of talking about their necklaces and their earrings, but they don't write silver necklaces and gold earrings, and like metal color is so ludicrously important to what somebody is searching for, that just like writing it down, getting into a really disciplined habit of like, okay, I'm never going to write necklace if it's a silver necklace. I'm never going to write gold. I'm never going to write earrings if it's gold earrings. I'm never going to write earrings if they're stud earrings. It's always stud earrings. So just that discipline of making sure that you go through your content. And if you've written a product description for your gold stud earrings, every time you've written earrings, you've written gold stud earrings, unless, it turns the content into like pure gobbledygook. but just that level of discipline of going through and writing heart-shaped earrings on all of your heart-shaped earrings as well, like just writing exactly what the thing is as often as you can without it turning into mush that no one actually wants to read.
Is it also a bit like with the alt text where you've got to presume people aren't seeing the photo, so you need to
Mhm.
be specific about what the thing is?
Yeah, so this is something that like this is where I've got beef with like Squarespace and Shopify, because Squarespace and Shopify, this is like a very light beef. It's like a rare beef. They often will call things like alt text and page titles and descriptions your SEO settings. And one thing that I think is that this lulls a lot of business owners into a false sense of security, because they'll fill these out and be like, tick, boom, nailed it, I've done my SEO. Whereas it's kind of like if you have like a huge pyramid of everything you can do to impact your SEO, writing even perfect page titles would be like doing like this little bit here. Like it's a really small part of the pyramid of the pie. Alt text in particular, it has like a defined meaning, has defined use, which is it is alternative text to the images. So if you go to a page and an image doesn't load, or if you have a disability that impacts your ability to see an image, you will get the alt text instead. The very best thing you can do for your alt text is to describe the image as concisely and as in as few words as possible. So don't like jam words in there. Don't jam like the best jeweler in Cardiff over and over again, because that won't help. That'll just really annoy the person who does have a visual impairment and relies on that alt text. Instead, you write things like gold heart-shaped earrings on a table next to a gold necklace, but also everything that's in that alt text, that should be on the page as well, because it's only going to benefit the people who are reading the content on the page as well as the people who are seeing the alt text or hearing the alt text because they can't see the image.
I think it's that classic thing though as well, partly because we're all so busy. So like you said, it does take discipline, it does take time and planning to write things out
Mhm.
as they should be. But also so many of us are used to, like you say about TikTok and stuff, it's just scroll. People are just scanning things.
Mhm.
And sometimes the advice is use the least text possible because nobody's reading it. But
Yep.
Google's reading it, so therefore it is
Yep.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something about the the amount of people that try to convince to write a long blog product description. They're like, "Who's reading it?" I'm like, "Well, no one's reading all of it. Google is the only one who's going to be reading You and Google are the only two that are going to be reading every single product on your website. However, you don't know which nugget it is that your customers are looking for either. So it's really unlikely that one customer is going to read an entire product description. But say that customer is looking to buy a gift for their vegan friend and they want to just double check that everything is vegan, and they have no idea about jewelry processes, or maybe you sell fabric jewelry and they're like, well, I just want to double check there's no leather in here anywhere. So just making sure that you have the word vegan really bright and bold, because someone is looking through the product description looking for that one word, or they might just be looking for the word sustainable, or they might have seen that the fine ring that they've seen on your website is a blue stone. They'd be like, oh, I just want to find out what stone that blue stone is. So it's really important to make sure that everything is in there and ideally structured so that each customer who needs whichever nugget it is they need can go and find it. But that is all Google has. And this is the things like write that description and put it lower on the page. Like I want to make sure that when I open one of your product pages, I can see the add to cart button straight away. But if I scroll down past the images and there's an essay, because maybe you're on a Shopify template that doesn't allow you to break up the text nicely, it's better to have that kind of ugly essay, because you want the website traffic, you also want to please the people who have the vegan best friend, than it is sometimes to have that more aesthetic website. And I'm not like, obviously not anti-aesthetic websites, but also your website's a business tool. You want it to like win you traffic. You want it to turn those visitors into customers. And sometimes that means having a lot of text on your site that doesn't look so cute.
And I suppose imminently, we're not, a lot of people aren't going to have to actually worry about reading through it or customers reading through it. Because one of the latest things with AI is it's summarizing things. So the
Mhm.
AI is scanning that and bringing the key information forward.
Yeah.
I know. So with
I'm
your
not.
newsletter, was it entitled? It was near the top, wasn't it? It said proudly AI free, because you can always tell when you've written something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so something that I feel like a lot of people expect me to be like fully anti AI, and I'm not. It definitely has its purposes, it has its uses, and I think like we also don't know what those are yet. Like the world hasn't quite adjusted to it. I think that we're just in an odd time right now where basically everyone has access to it, and that means that people who don't have the best meanings or the best understandings are also using it. So the reason that we write best free from AI on all of our blog posts is that there's an explosion right now in like AI written blog articles, And one of the things that's wrong with them is, for one, like inaccuracies and bad advice, but also that they are boring. And if someone is coming to my website, if someone is coming to my website design company to hear about 14 website tips for a jewelry business, they want those tips from like a real human who runs a website design company. Like, no one's coming to my web design company's website to hear a robot's 14 tips for designing a jewelry website. So it's also that reassurance that I'm kind of like saying to my readers landed on my website, like, oh, these are human tips. Like, if you're looking for a different point of view or actual experiences, like, you're in the right place. So
Yeah.
hang around.
Which is great, because I'm sure you're aware, one of our local news outlets, a lot of people, we've just stopped reading any of their articles because they're so obviously AI
Yeah.
generated. They're just a mess. Um, so there's a definite, like you said, there's stuff about it you can use it for good, but certainly, like you
Mm.
said, having those personal recommendations where we know you have been to those places and you know what it's about
Yeah,
is
like,
really good.
genuinely, one of the things that I mentioned for product descriptions is about having like a bank of different mini business bios, or maybe a bank of like different sustainability informations. But that could be something that you can pop it into ChatGPT and say, hey, can you give me 8 versions of this, and then edit them and proofread them. But that's a better way to use it than to say, hey, can you just, I don't know, write a blog post on how to care for your silver jewelry, which, never write a blog post on how to care for your silver jewelry. There's like 100,000 of them. You're not gonna win. You can write an article because you want your customers to be able to care for it, but only, again, if you're writing it because you're specifically thinking my customers need to care for their silver jewelry.
I think that's exactly it. That is a big one for us. So many of us don't educate our customers, but like you say, it's literally educating the customers so that they get the
Mhm.
best from the jewelry, and we're covering our backs a little bit because, then we know that they're not doing something that you really shouldn't do with it. But it's certainly not in terms of maybe searching for new customers or generating more traffic. 'Cause like I
Mm.
say, there's so many articles out there already. Um, so, talking about jewelry, and you mentioned it a minute ago, recently you shared 14 expert tips for designing a jewelry website. So, one of the things I was going to ask you, what motivated you to focus specifically on independent jewelry makers? And what are some of the key insights from those tips? And in your experience, because one of the things I say all the time, do you think Bristol is absolutely full of, I think we're like 90% jewelers
Mm.
in Bristol.
I would say, like, if I ever look up a creative workshop in Bristol, like half of them are jewelry workshops as well. Yeah, we're like, it's a creative city. Artists come from all over the UK to settle here, and a lot of those artists make very pretty things that we can wear. But yeah, the blog post, literally, I did it for SEO. Like, the reason I chose jewelers is because we've got a lot of experience with jewelers. So I've built 4, maybe 5 websites for different jewelers, 6. I've built more than 5 websites for different jewelry brands. So I've got a ton of experience, and the best blog articles are those where you've got experience and opinions as well. But it's something where we're working on our own SEO. So I mentioned about specificity earlier. So I could write website tips for small businesses, but I'm sure if you, Kim, are looking for website tips, you probably are looking for website tips for a jewelry website. And so I've got this little series called Website Tips for, and I've done for podcasters, for jewelers, for coffee shops and cafes, for other things that I've immediately forgotten, but I'm like 6 or 7 editions in. For bloggers, that was the other one that I just wrote.
I was going to say, you
And
got distracted at coffee shops because you always get distracted at coffee shops.
yeah,
Your
yeah, I
brain's
love the
just going
coffee
a bit.
shops.
Yeah.
Well, we're literally 2 doors down from Bristol's best coffee shop, so it's literally, I'm flush with lattes. But yeah, so this whole series was to allow me to write about more specific terms, because it also allows me to put my advice into context. So you asked about my favorite tips. So one thing I get asked about a lot, but it's hard to explain without talking about specific business, are variable products versus simple products. So I think different platforms use different names for them, but a simple or a single product would basically be one version of one product that has its own page, whereas a variable product would have like different colors or different sizes underneath it. And so one thing that I generally say is to use single products for any product where someone might Google what you are using as the variation, which doesn't sound a little bit like gobbledygook, right? But if I say to you, okay, you've got a necklace that comes in gold and silver, should you have one listing for necklace with a gold version and silver version, or should you have a gold listing and a silver listing? Have a gold listing and a silver listing, because if someone is typing gold sunshine necklace into Google and you have a sunshine necklace, but your competitor has a gold sunshine necklace, they're going to get that traffic. They're going to rank higher for you. So by having individual product pages where you can have the product page that is the most about a gold sunshine necklace that you could ever have, a gold sunshine necklace, and the most silver sunshine necklace you could have, it massively increases the chances of both of those products appearing in search results versus one product page that's not about gold and not about silver. I would definitely like those pages to be linked, whether that's linking in the text or, again, depending on your system, you might be able to have bundles or grouped products where you can let someone flip between the two easily. But listing your gold and your silver products as separate products will really help you reach the people who only want a silver necklace or a gold necklace, because most of us do only want silver or gold. Yeah, that's one of my favorite tips. And I share that tips for different types of business, but it's a lot easier to talk about for jewelers. Another one are talking about gemstone colors rather than gemstones. So, like most people, I would hear sapphire and think blue. I obviously now know that sapphires and emeralds, all rubies, all come in different colors. But if someone is like, especially with engagement rings, if you've got a boyfriend or a girlfriend just shopping for an engagement ring and they know that their partner wants a blue stone, or that they want a sapphire but wouldn't care if it's, I'm going to say topaz, that's blue, right? Yes, nailed it. But being able to use your filter to go by gemstone color will give them way more products that are just as good than just if you click sapphire and maybe they click sapphire and it only had greenstone products. They'd be like, oh, I'm on the wrong website. I've done this wrong. So yeah, doing that as well. One of my other favorite tips is a lot of jewelers have like bespoke jewelry design, and they will have a page on their website that says bespoke and maybe have a section that says, if you would like bespoke jewelry, get in touch, which is fine if someone is already a fan of yours, already follows you on social media, already knows everything about you, or again, their partner has sent the link to their website and been like, this is a jeweler that I like. But if you actually have someone who is Googling engagement ring designer Bristol or engagement ring designer London, if you have a page that's actually about your engagement, your bespoke service that talks about, if you're looking for a bespoke ring, if you've not worked with someone before, here is my process. Here is why you should pick me. Here are some examples of work I've done previously. Here is how long it takes. Here are some testimonials from 3 of my previous engagement ring clients. That one page holds so much more power and can rank so much harder, so much higher. It also gives you a page that the big brands can't get. Oliver Bonus don't have a page on their website about bespoke engagement ring design. So it's a way that you can actually beat the high street. I was going to say easily, but yeah, because they're not going to have that page. So that's a search term that you can pick up quite nicely.
Which makes perfect sense. And still, in the
Mhm.
grand scheme of things, yes, it'll take a while to write, but it's so easy to implement something like that.
Yeah. And also you can iterate it as well. You don't have to like go from having a sentence to having this 700-word page that I've described. Next time, just like add 3 testimonials in, come back to it next month and add a section in about your process. All of these little updates, Google can see them. Google isn't looking at a page once and never again. It's constantly revisiting your website and crawling that new content. So just keep adding bits in. If you're a jeweler that has a shop, for example, and some customers come in and they mention something they like about your service, but like, oh, I should put that on my website. So just add in a section, add in a sentence, and just keep building it, keep growing it.
I love that. Brilliant. So one of the other things I wanted to ask you, because obviously that's all website focused,
Mhm.
but if people were earlier days, so say they either have decided not to embrace having their own website because they think it's going to be too expensive or too time consuming, or they're newer to the business and they haven't got to that point yet, and they're using maybe Shopify, but more often than not, maybe they're just posting on, Facebook and
Mhm.
Instagram, and don't have any real shop presence, or they're using Etsy or something, what sort of advice would you give people to start getting their stuff seen a bit more using things like SEO?
It is tricky because in terms of SEO, the only thing you own is your domain. Like the only thing I own is studiocotton.co.uk. And so I also want people to like kind of get that website as early as possible, because the older a domain is, for example, in general, the bigger positive impact that has on how you rank. So even if you are getting started, it might even be worth just buying the domain and putting up a holding page that tells people you can shop on my Instagram stories or you can shop on my Etsy shop, just so that you own it and that future you can buy the website, because there are platforms where you can buy a domain and a website pretty cheaply. Etsy is generally a good place to start, but I'm not an Etsy expert. And actually, weirdly, a lot of my clients and small business friends have left the platform because of the influx of, I want to say, AliExpress products that have come in. But yeah, it's a tough one, because like my advice is to get a website. Like it is something that you are going to need, even if you get it and then just create a page on it, because if you want to be sold in shops or go out to markets, just having something that explains who you are so that you can start using it. If you are emailing like your local jewelry markets or local small business markets, having a website where you say, this is what I do, and having just a gallery on there is something you could then start emailing to the people who run the markets to hopefully get your pitch as well. Also, like if people are going to Google you, you want something in those results. You want something that you can come across. I would do that first. That sounds like a really thing. Like, what would you do if there isn't a website? Like, I would get the cheapest possible, quickest website that you can possibly get.
That make I
Yeah.
say it makes perfect sense, and like I say websites are normally only expensive once you start adding all the bells and whistles, aren't they? Like if
Yeah.
it's just a holding page or a couple of pages and a domain, they tend to be really quite
Yeah.
accessible.
And there's a lot now. Like so we've just switched over to a platform called Flowdesk just for our emails. And Flowdesk actually allows you to like sell like it's a bit odd because it doesn't have product pages, but you can take money via Flowdesk as well. So if it is the case where you want to launch and you have 3 products and you just want to get someone on your mailing list, have that landing page with a sign up form and then just be able to email people when those products are available. So there are other options. And Flowdesk itself, like it feels like a pitch for Flowdesk, but Flowdesk is like £20 a month, which I know is more than nothing, but also I'm pretty sure it's a monthly fee that you could cancel straight away as well. So if it's something where you've been sharing on social media, you've been building up imagery of your products and you're like, oh, I don't know, like I don't want to have a whole website, but I don't mind spending 40 quid so I can have 2 months of this service. That might be a nice place to just kind of give it a go as well.
Talking about people being able to contact you and
Mhm.
mailing lists and stuff. I've always been, I can't remember if I ever told you this or not because it's so ridiculous. I think I was about 18 years into my business before I actually started using my mailing list.
Mhm.
um, but like you always say in your posts, it's that's where the engagement is. And as
Mhm.
soon as I got over that and stopped telling myself, I'm being silly, and just would say every time I say to people, if anyone wants to sign up to my mailing list, I always get an influx. And every
Yeah,
time
yeah, yeah.
out, I can see that I'm getting the results from it. But again, I think a lot of jewelers, in particular creatives, are quite resistant to that because then there's the pressure of having to write that slightly more long form,
But
official
don't
looking.
don't this is my thing for emails. Write short emails. You don't need to. This is like something. So as I mentioned, my background was really heavy on email marketing, and I worked for some of like the like global brands for email marketing. And shorter emails perform better, especially for e-commerce, especially for online sales. What I really recommend is signing up for like a brand that I really like for their email marketing is Glossier, the makeup brand. Sign up for their emails and just look at how short and how like I was gonna say pithy. That's a word, right? How succinct their emails are. Sign up for I don't know, like find the biggest brand that is aesthetically or tone of voice closest to what you want to do and just look at how short their emails are. A lot of small businesses, I don't know why, but feel like they have to write these really long, heartfelt newsletters. And it's something that can work well for certain types of service businesses, like business coaches will tend to write really long, kind of heartfelt posts. And I will say, like, mine are a little bit longer currently than I would generally write. But just telling people that you have products that are available or you have a new workshop, writing as few words as possible about it. It's so much better to get that email sent than to get that email, like the perfect heartfelt email. And yeah, I think it's another one where like it's email is not attractive, it's not seductive, it's not new, it's not modern, but it is the only thing that you have that is cheap as chips comparatively for a small business. Like even like mentioned Flowdesk is like I think £20 a month if you get someone's affiliate code. Um, but that database is yours. Once someone signed up to your mailing list, you don't have to fight an algorithm. You don't have to fight other AI content because someone else has flooded Google with blog posts that are worse than yours. You own that data. You can send them emails in MailChimp or you can send them emails in Flowdesk, but that person has subscribed to you. You hear like so many people complain that they can't reach their followers on Instagram. I'm definitely one of them. I'd love to reach the people that are following me on Instagram, but I can definitely reach the people who have emailed me because I literally I can log into Flowdesk and just see their email addresses. So that's something where email marketing is so almost like ludicrously overpowered as a marketing channel. So yeah, maybe if you take away something from this, after you've written product descriptions, get people onto your mailing list, make it as easy as pie to sign up, and then just start sending a campaign, start once a fortnight, go up to once a week, and just tell people, even if it's one thing that's new, one thing that's seasonal, and one behind the scenes nugget, and that's it. Just send those 3 things, take all the pressure off yourself, and just, I don't know, enjoy that.
But that's the
Enjoy
thing, and
sales.
it's not as daunting as it seems. I've got no idea why I put it off for so
Mhm.
long. I suppose as well with like you were just saying, with blog posts, they're not fashionable, they're not really
Yeah,
sexy
yeah.
in the grand scheme of things. They do tend to be long form, but if you invest the time in those, they're fairly evergreen. You can take like you do, you take sections and you turn those into your nuggets for
Mhm.
your mailing list or your social media or your Pinterest. So it's worth putting the effort in. I'm talking myself into it if you can't hear
You
it in my
should, yeah,
voice.
no. I will say like a lot of people aren't that impressed by blogging until I like open my results on Google Search Consoles. Studio Cotton is a 5 or 6 person business. We're tiny. Like you can see like half my office behind me. Like it's a small space. And I think we got like 3 million impressions last year in Google. Like our highest was 5 million during the pandemic, but not as many people on websites these days. But yeah, like we have a ludicrous amount of impressions, which is the times that you appear in Google search results, and a crazy number of clicks for how small we are. And that is all from our blogs. And some of the blogs that drive the most traffic to our website are 3.5, 4 years old. And it's something where like you don't get the high of writing a blog article and getting all of that traffic the next day or getting all of those likes within an hour, but they aggregate, they pay off. We've got like one article that is a really popular article about the best coffee shops in Bristol for client meetings, which is basically just the best coffee shops in Bristol. And that one article has driven like, I think 30,000 clicks to our website. And those are 30,000 clicks from people who aren't like looking for a website designer. And I would much rather have had 30,000 clicks from someone Googling small business website design company. But that's still 30,000 people who had no idea who I was before. And now they have seen my name, they have seen my logo. If they are creative, if they are interested in websites, if they are interested in anything even slightly related to what I do, I am now on their radar and I wasn't before. Plus, it allowed me to get the word Bristol on my website a ton of times. Google is like really biased towards local search, which makes sense because like even if someone's looking for an engagement ring designer, they probably would prefer to work with a local engagement ring designer so they can see that product, meet that person. And having more excuses to write the word Bristol, like as a jeweler, you can write like as designed in my Bristol studio, but you probably don't have that many opportunities to write Bristol otherwise. So writing about your like favorite cafes, I keep saying coffee shops. I feel like I'm obsessed with coffee shops, but even if you didn't write
Yeah,
about
best coffee shops. I'd love it.
but then if you did write an article about your favorite coffee shops for sitting and sketching, that could be a nice article. Or your favorite, I don't know, like writing like a little guide for all of like, I'm thinking now only about engagement rings, but like your favorite wedding planning spaces around Bristol, like your most romantic spots for proposing. These are all things that are slightly related, but related enough to make it worth writing.
So, just lastly, if you had to pick 3 top tips for our listeners, if you were able to pick, because I know you've already shared so many, what would they be?
The first one is definitely product descriptions. Like that is something that no matter what other things you do, until you've done your product descriptions, that will be the most important thing. It doesn't matter how good your blog is or how good your exhibitions page is, because if you haven't got your product descriptions with thorough descriptions that show up in Google search results, it's just way harder to find them, way harder to buy them. One thing we haven't talked about is product photography. But just to make sure that this is something that I talk about a lot with websites, but a lot of people that come to me that's like show me a website that they love, I tend to say to them like, do you love the website or do you love the photography and the branding? Because a lot of the time, like that's actually what are the things that someone's latching onto. So making sure that you are investing in your photography, and by investing, obviously I would love everyone to have a professional photographer shoot all of their products, but that could also just mean watching some YouTube tutorials, buying some props, going to B&Q and getting a sheet of MDF and painting it your brand color. So just making sure that it's nice and consistent. This is a good one as well for anybody who sells jewelry from multiple brands. Like if you're a jewelry shop stocking 8 different designers, it's a really quick way for your website to look like higgledy-piggledy and less professional if you have 8 completely different styles of jewelry on it. So some consistency is really important as well. Get those detail shots in. This is something where there's a photographer I work with called Veronica who specializes in jewelry photography, like tiny thing photography. And I know shooting stud earrings is a right pain in the bum, but make sure that you are, instead of just saying it's a pain in the bum, like doing the research, going on YouTube, finding tutorials, finding blog posts from photographers and trying their tips. So yeah, I'd get those 2 items nailed. Um, Oh, and then that's the third one. Oh, yeah, keep updating your website. Don't set it and forget it. That's not a thing you can do. If you set your website and never go back to it, all you're doing is letting every single one of your competitors, which means every jeweler, every website, every product page and Oliver bonus, all of them are getting better and better. And you are probably going to start ranking lower and lower because you are leaving your website behind. So go onto your homepage, put in those seasonal collections, change up that banner every 2 to 4 weeks, put different products on your page. It doesn't only have to be new in. You can pick seasonal collections, you can pick your favorite collections. If you do anything to do with weddings, please put something to do with weddings on your homepage. Like, let people make it easy for you. It's too late for Valentine's Day. If we were talking at the end of December right now, I'd be saying create your Valentine's Day collections. Put Valentine's Day on your homepage. I say on the day we're recording this is where it's like 2 days for Valentine's. So it probably is definitely too late. But next year, start putting your Valentine's on your website in January to give people time to find it and buy it.
It's all about that, just taking that moment to pre-plan, isn't it? And
Mm. Yeah, and I
so
find like a lot of businesses are generally quite good at like planning social media. Even if they don't have it written down in a spreadsheet, they'll generally have a good idea of what they want to do. Just add a column to that plan that says website and then put the same stuff on your website as well.
thank you, Amy.
No
We
worries.
will put where people can find you in the show notes, and I'll get them to link to your 14 expert tips for jewelers in there as well. But just
Awesome.
verbally, can you let people know how they can find you if they want to link?
Yeah, so the best thing to find is on Instagram. So I am at studio.cotton, so full stop cotton. The website is studiocotton.co.uk. The blog is studiocotton.co.uk/blog. I also have a Slack community, if I'm allowed to plug that. But if anybody wants to ask questions and get a website designer and her team to answer them, then that's a really helpful place to go. Even if you just want someone to look at your homepage and say, is it good? Is it bad? Is it bad? Is it good? Is it having room for improvement? But yeah, all the details of that are on our website as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today.
No, thank you, Kim.